Happy Mock Draft Monday, everybody. We've got a brand new, fresh mock draft. We heard from Matt Williamson last week. It's time for my mock draft. Peacock Mock 1.0 pre-combine edition. And I think I got a good handle on where these teams are, where these prospects are, and what's actually going to happen at the combine that will show how correct this mock draft is. It might not have to do a 2.0, Matt. Coming up on today's Peacock Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Everydayers, we love you. We appreciate you. Hit that thumbs up. Let us know you stopped by. And if you're new to the program, please hit that subscribe button. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And it helps us out tremendously. And come on, you don't want to miss anything. Hang out with us as we go through the draft and free agency and tons of trade opportunities. And we do have trades in my mock draft. So you don't want to miss that one. Let's get started on this, Matt, because I'm pumped. I'm pumped for my mock draft 1.0. And you dropped yours last week. And now I can really convey to the listeners out there what's actually going to happen in the NFL.
There you go.
Right. What you had going on last week. And there's obviously some things that are very similar in our mock drafts, right? And so I can't wait
including
to get
these first three picks. I want to focus on those first and foremost.
I started out with and we've talked about this, the top three guys. I'm going with, and look, one big theme for my mock draft here is star potential. Teams are going to look for that, and they're going to I'm not going to say reach for that star potential, but they're going to try to achieve that star potential at the top of the draft. And I think that's where some of the ties are going to get broken for some of these teams early. And I am going to project that some players will work out to a level that teams will be comfortable drafting them super early, thinking we've got a guy here that is going to, make Pro Bowls at his position, not just reaching for need, but need might, factor into a lot of it with tiebreakers as well. But high-end talent is what teams are looking for here at the top of the NFL draft. And I went corner. I went Travis Hunter because of the superstar potential. Okay. And if teams really, really believe that they are going to get a shut down superstar cornerback plus someone that can really make a difference on offense, even if it's only a few plays a game can be massive for a team, right? If you're also accompanying that with a cornerback. So I'm going to go that direction here. And if I'm not mistaken, you had Abdul Carter one in your mock.
I did. I was thinking I had the exact same three, but I had the same players, but not the same spots.
So, same three as your mock draft. And part of me just wanted to do it a little bit differently than you. And I do think that's the blue chippers, the two blue chippers the teams will look at in this draft with, some caveats. Some guys could kind of join the elite party, I think, at the combine too, and check some more boxes. But I'm going Travis Hunter, number one. And accompanying that with, who knows, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. They let Will Levis hang out with Aaron Rodgers for one more year and then maybe go back to the well if things go like they did with the New York Jets for the Tennessee Titans. And they skip on the quarterback at number one and go Travis Hunter. And then I've got the Cleveland Browns, who are going to need to replace Myles Garrett, because I do think that trade is going to happen with Myles Garrett going elsewhere. You're going to have to check into the end of this mock draft to find out where he goes, by the way, because that's part of it. And they're going to go with Abdul Carter. Easy pick for them here, and allows them to not chase quarterback either. And look, if I think both 1 and 2, there's potential for trades and teams coming up, Matt. But I think in the end, there's a high-level player. So those teams, the Browns and the Titans, are going to want like future ones. And I'm not sure if these quarterbacks are worthy of teams giving up those future ones, big time returns to go up and get those quarterbacks. So that's why I've got Hunter 1 to the Titans, and I've got Abdul Carter 2 to the Browns, and then the New York Giants, who I think are going to swing big on quarterback, whether that's trade. Matthew Stafford apparently allowed to seek trade. Could that happen before the draft? Certainly. If not, I started to look at some other options. And what would the Giants do? The Giants need to hit big, and they might say to themselves, okay, well, we can get a middling quarterback, veteran quarterback, or we can hope that we get Jaden Daniels. They have to take a big swing. So I'm like, Stafford or Ward, I think, for the New York Giants starts to make more sense, even though it's a rookie and it's harder to win, and they're going to start the season on the hot seat. I think you at least dare to dream and you try to swing big at quarterback, whatever it is, if you're the Giants.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna fight your split hairs on Carter versus Hunter, Hunter versus Carter, or either way, whatever. I think that was a coin flip for me, and it's a little more convenient to put Carter there with Garrett on the move too. So that's a nice little perk. But I've done more Cam Ward homework since I turned my mock in, which was like 10 days ago. It was over a week ago. And deep down, if I had to put $1 on who goes first overall, I would pick Cam Ward right now. And I don't know to who. I just think that when it's all said and done, it's going to be a quarterback. It's always a quarterback. Somebody's going to make Tennessee an offer, or Tennessee's just going to take him. I think he's going to go one, but I don't know to who.
That brings me to we're going to get to pick number 5 in a second, actually. Pick number 4, and I'm going to put it up on the screen.
4 is Harry.
4 is starts to get easy for me post-combine.
Really? Okay.
And I'm going to project that this is going to happen. Tet McMillan is my pick here at number 4. And I've gone back and forth on this. I just think, again, star potential. I went back and I've done a deep dive on Tet McMillan, watched his film. He's not a perfect prospect, but I think there's an element to his game at 6'5" that we're kind of just glossing over. It's just like he's too good. And you're going to get as long as he checks his last box of the combine, which I think he could be a guy that runs a lot faster than we think. You remember Calvin Johnson? I'm not comparing him to Calvin Johnson.
Right.
Calvin Johnson, like, this guy's a beast. He's huge, 6'5", 230 or whatever he was. And he's fast. And then he goes to the combine like, oh, he's fast.
Yeah.
4.35 or whatever it was. Calvin Johnson, freak of nature. I think Tet McMillan, when you watch him play, it's a little bit more build-up speed, but he's a guy that might actually run faster, even though, like, some people question, how quick is he actually as a route runner? Maybe he's not the best at like screens and those types of things. But when you see him you watch him run and you watch him kind of run after the catch. There's some top speed there. Sometimes it's hard to tell with long striders. I think he's going to, 4.45 is all he has to. He doesn't have to go 4.35 like Calvin Johnson.
Right.
4.45. If you're the Patriots sitting there with the young star quarterback in Drake May, you have that box is checked for you, and it's Tet McMillan for me at pick number 4. And so he's the guy I'm going to project there until I see otherwise at the combine, or I see, say, an offensive lineman or some other prospect of elite nature kind of join the party and be like, you can't pass on him at number 4 in the non-wide receiver, non-offensive line category. So Tet McMillan 4 for me.
So Greg Cosell says this all the time, but it's something that the scouting community is familiar with. Just these tall, long striders are often faster than they look because they eat. I mean, all speed is stride length times how fast you turn it over, and they just have long stride lengths, so they eat up more grass per step. And I think he's one of those guys, and maybe he doesn't look it because he's not like Tyreek that looks like the Roadrunner. I mean, it's just big strides,
Right.
And I think you're right. If he runs under 4.5, he's way cleaner than any of the offensive line prospects for the Patriots here.
Yeah.
And I can imagine his last 20 yards in Indy will be fast. Maybe his first 10 and 20 won't, but his last 20 will. Like Evans,
Next, we've got our first trade at pick number 5 in the Peacock Mock 1.0. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And I know NFL season is over, but guess what? We're doing a mock draft, and you can still bet on the NFL season, whether it's the future NFL Super Bowl champion or if it's NFL draft props, which is my favorite way to bet on the NFL, even more so than all the games that happen all fall. And of course, now it is NBA season, so you can get in on that NBA action at FanDuel. And how about some live in-game betting as well? Make every game even more interesting than it already is in the NBA. live in NBA game bets. You can miss the opening tip and still bet on that fourth quarter comeback. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, here we go, Matt. We're on to pick number 5. I'm going to put the graphic on the screen here, picks 1 through 7. And I do have my first trade, and it is the New York Jets trading up, getting ahead of just 2 spots, getting ahead of the Las Vegas Raiders, going from 7 to 5. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. And again, I'm projecting what's going to happen at the combine and looking at the New York Jets and the offensive coordinator, the former pass game coordinator from the Detroit Lions that joined Aaron Glenn. And I think this is a good opportunity. You look at Jared Goff and how he ran that offense. Shedeur Sanders is that type of quarterback, right? And so, and I think Sanders kind of work out well. I think he's going to have plenty of arm. I think he's a player that, has charismatic. I think he'll be good in interviews as well. And I think he's a player that the stock could climb enough for him and for teams that see how deep of a gap it is after this quarterback. And look, maybe the Jets won't be willing to go all the way up to number 1 or 2 and spend future draft capital, but they might only take a 3rd round pick to jump a team and get yourself a quarterback. Or maybe even the Raiders say we were going to go up a couple spots too and thwart any other attempts. I could see that for Shedeur Sanders. And so I've got Shedeur Sanders and 2 quarterbacks coming off the board in the top 5.
Yeah, I could see teams being much more willing to trade down. Maybe a 3rd round pick's all it takes, move back 2 spots. If I'm the Jags, picking at 7 versus 5 when I know a quarterback's going to fall in one of the 2 picks doesn't change my life hardly at all. So great. Personally, I'm not a big Sanders believer at this point of the process, but this makes tons of sense for the Jets to get ahead of the Raiders,
And it depends how the Jets feel about the other players. Do they have different tiers of guys in the draft that they're okay with at pick number 7? And we'll skip 1 pick here and go to the Jags, who made the trade back. For them, they get a free pick and take the guy I would have given to him at pick number 5 in Mason Graham anyway. So it's a no-brainer. The Jaguars there. Pick number 6. I love this one. Similar to Tet McMillan. Again, this is a little prediction.
I was going to say the same thing.
All Will Johnson has to do, Matt, is run 4.45 at the combine, and he's in that category. He's not getting out of the top 10. And I like this pick too, because not only do the Raiders need a lot of back 7 help on that defense, but just take the best player. And guess what? A Michigan man. Who else is a Michigan man? Well, part of the leadership group and Tom Brady and the GM in John Spytek, both Michigan guys. So there you go.
Yeah, and he didn't have the best year, but they'll be all clued in on that. They'll know everything about this guy. Like you said, just like McMillan, don't screw it up. Don't run slow.
Big combine for Will Johnson, and even if he doesn't run, his season ended, and I think it's not a big injury, but he did get shut down and didn't come back, probably because of his draft stock, and didn't want to crater that. But there's some, like Tet McMillan, again, very similar prospects in that very smooth. There's some parts of his game where this guy could be a superstar. Just check the last box. That's all you got to do for Will Johnson, and I think he solidifies himself in that tier of maybe not the elite blue chippers, but right in that group with Tet McMillan and Mason Graham in the next category of the top 10 guys. Yeah. I'm going to go to pick number 8 here next and bring it up on the screen. This is a tough one. And again, you got to project. Step back. You don't have to project what Mike Green is. And so that's why for me, he comes off first as the edge rusher here to the Carolina Panthers, because he's got enough size. He's 6'3", 250. Important. I think he fits in. He can be, scheme versatile player. He can stand up, put his hand in the ground. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He led all of college football in pass rush or in sacks. He's huge in pass rush grades and run grades for PFF. He's just what he is. And there's a couple other guys that are jockeying for that sort of speed rusher, edge rusher, 250-poundish. But I already have seen Mike Green weigh 250, and Jalen Walker and James Pierce still have some work to do. But I think those 3 guys specifically have some jockeying for position. Was like, who's your favorite kind of like speed rusher in this draft? The guy that shows up maybe at the combine with just the right amount of size, length, 6'3", 250, not the arm length, Can Jalen Walker be 6'3", 250 with 34-inch arms? Is that enough for a team, even though there's less production, to put him up as the first guy? James Pierce, can he prove that he's more than 240 pounds? He's built like a wide receiver. He's narrow. Do you look at his shoulders and his hips and say, this guy just is not going to be big enough to be what we need him to be in the NFL? So less projection actually on this pick with Mike Green. You get what you see in Mike Green, pick number 8. And then the opposite is Mykel Williams. I don't like Mykel Williams at number 9, but everyone else seems to love him. I think you're talking to people around the league. They just go goo-goo, and you see a 6'5", 270-pound defensive lineman with 35-inch arms. He has to prove he's that kind of athlete too to go in the top 10. But Mykel Williams is one of those where I'm going to throw my hands up for now and be like, yeah, the tape doesn't match, but teams just love that body type, and they're willing to take that chance. And coaches will be like, give me that guy, I can coach him up.
Yeah, I think these definitely could be edge guys. And there's a lot of teams, and we'll get to the Falcons at 15, where it seems like they have to go with some sort of pass rusher as well. I would do the same if I was Carolina. My only things to add to that is I hate throwing this out there if it's not true, but I do think there might be off the field stuff with Mike Green. That stuff will come to light more here and there. And Mykel Williams is a little bit like McMillan and these guys, like blow up a combine and you'll be in the top 10 because you have traits. I just don't quite see it either,
Yeah, exactly. The Chicago Bears pick starts to get a little bit easier for me because I start looking at the roster and where they're at, and you kind of want to go running back Ashton Jeanty. You want to give him the Jahmyr Gibbs for Ben Johnson and his new place in Chicago, and then you're like, oh, wait a second, hold on. This team can't operate unless they fix their offensive line. They just have to. And this is the one team, too, that's high in the draft where they can say, who's the best offensive lineman? Is it Will Campbell? I don't care if he's a guard. In fact, we really need a guard. So
that's fine if he's a guard. Right.
He's a Pro Bowl guard the rest of his career, never plays tackle. That's okay, too. Just draft the best offensive lineman on the board, and I'm going Will Campbell here, number 10 to the Chicago Bears.
I totally get it. If that ended up being Membo or Banks, I'd get it, too. But now they have their pick. Great. I would take Campbell as well.
Membo coming up very soon here. I'm going Walter Nolen, defensive tackle to the San Francisco 49ers. It's a huge need. The 49ers are going to draft the defensive tackle in the first couple of rounds. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of those where Nolen is just going to continue to rise. He'll just kind of put the dot at the end of the sentence here at the combine and prove, yeah, he's more explosive even than Mason Graham, and 6'3" plus. He's going to be 295. He plays with a motor. I think teams are going to feel really good about getting potentially, a really explosive, penetrating defensive tackle in Walter Nolen here. So I'm going to give him to the 49ers at pick 11. And, a pick that we see a lot is Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys. How many teams are going to sit there with the guy with the best grade on their board at the top and just keep passing them over? I feel like the Cowboys are the type team. Like, that's where it lands. And I know it's boring for Cowboys fans because Jeanty keeps being the pick here, but it's the best spot. So that's why he continues to be the pick. And you mentioned Membo. I'm going Membo here for the and this kind of a little bit of a run on offensive linemen, and the whole draft is a run on defensive linemen, I feel like. But Armand Membo could play tackle, could play left side, could play right side, could play guard. Dolphins could use any of that, right? Out of Missouri, and I think he's going to be a riser too. He's a early entry to the draft. He's a junior. He has a lot of traits, and I just get the feeling teams really do love what Armand Membo could be in the NFL.
And I hope the Dolphins take this exact same approach. And it sounds like Membo might have a really big week next week in Indy. And my only other comment, too, is early in the process, we mocked Nolen to the Steelers at 21 over and over and over. And I basically have come to the conclusion after the Senior Bowl, like, that ain't happening. I think he's going to be D-tackle, too.
Yeah, so Dane Brugler's first mock draft had Walter Nolen to the 49ers at pick 43 in the second round.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so,
that ain't happening.
Eric Crocker and I put on the tape, and we're like, this is the first round guy. Like, that'd be awesome if he's there. In fact, Brugler had Membo to the Niners at pick 11, and we watched them both, and we said, well, Nolan's better than Membo. Membo's fine, but Nolan's better. I would take Nolen at 11, Membo at 43 maybe. And so we'll see how that goes. But Walter Nolen, I think, is going to solidify himself as a first round guy here at the combine.
Yeah, or first half of the first round too.
Yeah. Next, let's finish up the second half of this mock draft, and we've got another trade coming. In fact, we have two more trades coming after pick 14 and 15. Next. All right, let's keep it moving here in Peacock Mock 1.0. This is a pretty common pick now. And Tyler Warren, it's hard for me to figure out which team would be willing to draft a tight end early. I don't think he's going to go ahead of like the blue chippers or the second tier guys for me, just because he is a tight end. But a team might have, much like Genty, just a super high grade and positional value be damned. Tyler Warren. And I think the fit here for the Colts is really good at pick 14.
I 100% agree. This is a little chalky, but I also feel like it's his floor. I think I'm higher on Warren than you are just from our last two podcast conversations, but I think he has a chance to go. I think it's about as late as he can go.
I think for Warren, the one thing about his tape that is just like, well, a lot of tight ends would look amazing if their offensive coordinator would just give them the ball in every
feature them.
Yeah. Right. How much did he create just himself would be the one question, which is still good, but is it this elite level good? If a team force feeds you the football in every possible way, it makes it a lot easier to get the ball in your hands and show off what you can do. But like just as a pure third down route runner, is he Travis Kelce? No, but he's going to fit a lot of teams too. In the
and he blocks, and you're right though. Like they hand him the ball, he takes direct snaps. Like not a lot of tight ends get those opportunities.
Jalen Walker hedging here. I don't know. He could be a second round pick if he's 6'1" and 7/8 and 240 pounds at the combine and doesn't run well. He could be the 8th pick in the draft. He could go top whoever. He could be right after.
He could be that Panther Saints neighborhood neighbor.
Yeah. He probably can't leapfrog Abdul Carter, but man,
no, I don't think.
Walker, I love the way he plays. And if he was allowed to be a full-time just edge rusher, I think he might have a much better grade than what I'm kind of giving him right now. And I'm not sure, but he's got to stick the landing at the combine. If he's 6'3", 250, has 34-inch arms, you could really dare to dream with him. And obviously the Falcons got to do something. So best edge guy available, best, what was the stat that you brought up about the Falcons? That they had the worst?
Oh, yeah. They were 31st in sacks this year. Over the last 5 years, they have the fewest sacks in the league. Over the last 10 years, they have the fewest sacks in the league. Over the last 20 years, they have the fewest sacks in the league.
That's insane.
It's insane. And what's crazy is the Steelers are the opposite. They're first over the last 5 years, first over the last 10 years, first over the last 20 years.
So find your TJ Watt.
Right.
And remember,
go do what they're doing.
There's some similarities to, whichever team thinks it's that guy. And it's hard to find TJ Watt. Don't get me wrong. But
sure.
TJ Watt was like, we don't know what to do with this guy. What is he? Doesn't quite fit. Is not the cleanest evaluation. And it's like, oh, yeah, he just has all this ability and plays like an animal. Well, that's Jalen Walker.
Yeah, right. I don't care what mold he fits. Just he makes a lot of plays. And so many Falcons fans and some really intelligent ones they're like, oh, we know. I mean, trust me, I feel your pain. But a couple of them even wrote back and be like, look at every defensive player the Falcons have ever drafted and tell me how many of them have been really good besides Deion Sanders. There's like 5.
I can think of the organization in recent history, and that's about it. Every time they draft a rusher, he's not that good.
Yeah, Patrick Kearney was okay. But like how many defensive players have they drafted that have been good? Like none.
Who was was it Jamal Anderson?
Not the running back.
No, it was
oh yeah, there was another.
Wasn't there another Jamal Anderson? Was that the Falcons? Like a big, he went 10 maybe.
Didn't do it, didn't cut it. You know. But there aren't many in history that they've drafted at any position on defense that have done well.
We've got a trade. I can't wait to hear what you think about this one. It is your Pittsburgh Steelers. And I've been watching a lot of the wide receivers, the top guys. And the more I watch them, the more I come to the conclusion. Again, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here because I see a lot of Emeka Egbuka up here in the top 20. I think there is a massive gap between the top 2 guys, which is McMillan and Luther Burden, and the rest. And if there's going to be if there's a big trade in this draft, I think it might be for a wide receiver. And I've got your Pittsburgh Steelers going from 21 to 16 to draft Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri, and ending the madness, finally getting the Steelers that extra wide receiver. And to be honest with you, I think they could still do this move even if they sign a veteran wide receiver.
So my partner and I go back and forth this a lot, and we do tons of Steeler mocks, as you can imagine. And rarely do we take a receiver in the first round just because we expect a veteran to be, Kupp, Debo, Kirk, something like that. But that being said, we I've also gone back and forth on Burden, and I'm kind of late to the party on him. I know he's been on a list forever, but I just started watching him. And I'm not saying he is this guy, but he reminds me of the light beer version of Jamar Chase. You know, a big, solid, get him the football, run after the catch. I mean, just stylistically. And my co-host always, comes back at me as, and he's not wrong. He's like, everything they throw to him is a bubble screen. I'm like, I want to see him run routes. I'm like, yeah, they can't protect and their quarterback stinks, but
their quarterback was awful this year.
Awful, right?
One of the worst throws I've ever seen. Like, how is this guy a D1 quarterback? So
and he got real frustrated.
Box score scouting on Luther Burden, you're missing out because he is super explosive, can make plays after the catch. He can make plays down the field too. He's tough. Like, there's some Amon-Ra St. Brown to his game where
good comparison.
He's not super big, but he's built thick enough, and he plays physical. The way he plays, the energy he plays with, I love Luther Burton, and I think he can get better as a route runner. But I think there's a reason, and it's more a quarterback than him, why they're throwing a bunch of screens and they want to get the ball in their best players' hands. I love Luther Burton, so explosive, and he can't get out of the first half of the first round for me. So Steelers trade up to get him here.
It'd be helpful.
Next. We've got Kenneth Grant, big defensive tackle out of Michigan, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals need a lot of help on defense and really haven't been able to replace DJ Reader, which is really important to how that defense ran. So I like Kenneth Grant here, and he's such a physical marvel that he's going to go high in this draft. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, could easily play guard, could kick out if they need for the Seattle Seahawks. Is kind of just best offensive lineman available there at 18. Then at 19 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, James Pierce Jr. I think he kind of loses for me in the battle of the speed rushers right now, just because of how narrow he is, and it shows less power to his game and less speed to power than Jalen Walker and Mike Green do. But again, like, you could just shuffle those three potentially on draft day, and I probably wouldn't be too shocked if Pierce is pick 20 or pick 8. Like, I don't know. Those guys is a lot to shake out there, and eye of the beholder. And then I'll finish out the top 20 here. We got Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia, going to the Denver Broncos.
I can't fight any of that. I definitely think Pierce might be a little overrated. I don't see him as a top 10 type guy for all the reasons you mentioned, and his effort is okay. He's a little bit linear for me. Starks is a tough one for me to slot, but I think it's kind of the Genty conversation where he's just really good at what he does. We can't have him fall anymore. Let's snag him,
Right. Starks is the guy that's like, you're going to have a first round grade, but he's a safety, but you don't want to dip into your second round grade. So you're going to draft Malachi Starks when it gets to that point.
Yeah.
At every team, he can cover in the slot. He can move around, and he's a really good prospect. It's not quite the level of some, superstar safeties and, the Derwin Jameses or the Mika Fitzpatricks that have gone really high in the draft, but he's right behind those guys probably, and he's even smoother from a coverage standpoint than maybe both of those guys even.
Yeah, I think so. I will say the South Carolina safety has a chance to be obscene in. It might be on this list before long.
Man, worry he's not in my first round because he might even be a linebacker. That's like a scary one where you're like 230 pounds, 6'2", and you're a crazy athlete, but maybe that makes you get drafted too high. I'm gonna have to on him. He's a little bit difficult for me to place in the first round right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's in that zone either. The Cards here move back a few picks, get Shamar Stewart, defensive end out of Texas.
Well for them.
And I think it's they need to go on the defensive side of the ball. They can kind of swing for the fences on a boomer bust prospect, and they get an extra pick just in case the bust part of that happens. So they might feel better about that at 21 than at 16.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit for him.
Talking Michigan here, Michigan ruling the first round, the 4th Michigan Wolverine, Colston Loveland, tight end here. I was thinking about maybe having the Chargers be the team that moves up for a wide receiver, but the pass catcher, pass catcher available on the board here. And again, Jim Harbaugh coached him, so we got the personal connection there as well. For Loveland, Harbaugh, Chargers, and giving one more weapon to Justin Herbert.
Yeah, it feels almost like the Warren Colts fit, where I think you're going to see this a lot.
Yeah. Jahdae Barron's the next one up here, corner for
love this guy.
For the Green Bay Packers, and Barron just seems to be a riser. Everyone loves him that watches him. He gets comparisons to Brian Branch. He can do a lot. He can play corner. He could play safety. He can cover the nickel, which is becoming more and more valuable in the NFL. And, Jair Alexander might be gone soon from the Packers. They need some help on that defensive side of the ball, despite all the first rounders they already have. But, they love going first rounders on defense. So don't be shocked if they do it again here in 2025.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he goes noticeably higher just because people are going to realize can't just punt at slot corner anymore,
At the same time, though, we knew that about, does he have a higher grade than Brian Branch? We had Brian Branch in all of our first round mock drafts, and he still didn't go in the first round.
I know. I'm hoping the league learns their lesson,
Yeah, he should have. That's for sure.
Right.
We'll finish it up at the end of round one here. We got Josh Simmons. This is a little bit tougher just because Josh Simmons, I'm kind of going the other way with him.
I put him at 4, just gave him the benefit of the doubt of being healthy, but he might not be.
He should be. He's the best left tackle on tape in this draft. And he's the cleanest, pure left tackle. And it's hard to come by because everybody else is like, he might be a guard. But he's got this knee injury. And the more I look at the patellar tendon knee tear that Josh Simmons has, it's not so much how long it takes to come back from it. It's that guys have a tough time being their old selves.
Okay.
And so I'm going to have teams be a little bit wary of Josh Simmons in this mock draft until I hear otherwise about his knee. I have him fall into this point where it's just he's too good. And for basically these next two teams, 24, 25, you could flip these two picks. Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama, going 25 to the Houston Texans. Run on offensive linemen at the end of the round. Guys that could still be tackles, they just don't get any further. And for the Vikings, even if Simmons loses a little athleticism, you're looking at him for a guard at least in the.
I assumed that. I was going to ask you that,
anyway,
but I assumed that's what you're thinking there.
And then maybe he bounces out and he's a future tackle for you, and he comes back to his old self, and then you got another Darisaw on your hands potentially if you're the Vikings there, who by the way is coming back from injury. Tyler Booker. Another swing at guard in the first round. Didn't work last time. They need help there. Got to fix the offensive line if you're the Houston Texans. And then another offensive lineman right in a row, Los Angeles Rams, Josh Connerly out of Oregon. The last kind of clean, this guy's going to play tackle in the NFL player. So he goes at 26.
Houston and the Rams absolutely scream O-line, especially with their left tackle up for free agency in LA. I got no problems with it. I don't like the next pick, though, to be honest with you. I don't think this guy's a first-round player.
Really? See, he's the most Raven-y guy to me. I thought it was a perfect.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. He's a Ravensy power end. Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. He's kind of a one-move guy. He's more of a power player, a bull rush guy, but I think that's okay. And he's just the type of player the Ravens draft. And so that's why I made the connection there. And he might be more of a second rounder, but I think we're getting into the second round grade section of this draft anyway. And the Ravens.
I think he's a good fit. I just don't think he's this good a player, a prospect. He doesn't float my boat,
How good of a player is Myles Garrett? Because he's going to
how about that?
Lions in this mock draft. The Browns on the clock again. They get a couple first round picks. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but I think right now betting favorite should probably be the Detroit Lions to trade for Myles Garrett. And they give up pick number 28 in the first round of this draft. And the Browns, who went Abdul Carter early, now go corner here late instead of Travis Hunter in the first round. And they get Siobhan Ravel. And look, he's coming off an injury, but 6'3", 195. I love the recruiting story with Ravel. Apparently he went to East Carolina just on a whim and just decided to go from JUCO and drive overnight to go try out at East Carolina. Ran 4.3 with a 40-inch vertical, and they're like, here's a scholarship, please come here. And the rest is history. He was hurt this year, but look, for the Browns, you're building this thing long term, so you're not worried about that. You're trying to get yourself a star corner. So love the fit there. To end the round, we got—
And real quick on Ravel, even if he's not ready for mini camp or training camp for them, they're really not a contender this year anyways. Just be patient,
Right, exactly. You're just trying to add high-end talent at positions that are hard to find that high-end talent at times. Jihad Campbell, fix your defense, get better. A lot of places you could go with this with Washington, but Bobby Wagner is not going to play forever, and he's a free agent anyway. And maybe Jihad plays next to Bobby Wagner and learns a lot from him. But he's kind of a beast, and he can rush the passer. He can defend the run.
Bring him off the edge a little bit. Yeah,
and he can cover as well. He's a big-time athlete. Jihad Campbell, pick 29 to Washington. I love the Matthew Golden fit.
Yes.
For the Bills. Do they go back to the first round well again? We'll see. They might have already kind of fixed this in free agency. We'll see, but they don't have a lot of money to spend either. And Golden is so different than Khalil Shakir and Coleman that they already have, because he's got that route running ability that hit in and out of his breaks. I like Golden more than, and by the way, I don't have Emeka Egbuka in my first round.
Yeah, I noticed that. I like Golden better than him too.
I don't see a first round guy in Egbuka. I feel like I'm crazy because people have him in the top 20. And this is the thing. I think there's a massive gap after the top two receivers in this class. I like Golden because he's got speed, can get downfield for Josh Allen, but can also get in and out of his breaks and be a route runner, can play outside, but you can also move him around. So I think the fit is really nice for the style of player Golden is for what the Buffalo Bills need to finish their wide receiver group there. Tershawn Wharton's a free agent, defensive tackle in KC. So I'm going D tackle to end the first round here because of a couple of free agents on these two Super Bowl teams. I'm going Tyleik Williams to be that nose next to Chris Jones. And I believe the Chiefs only have one tackle, who is Chris Jones, under contract right now, going into free agency. And then Milton Williams is also a free agent. I feel like he's the least likely of like Zach Bond,
me too.
Sweat free agents to be re-signed. Going Derek Harmon out of Oregon with a little run on defensive linemen here at the end of the first round to the Philadelphia Eagles. And that ends my mock draft, man.
Yeah, I think Harmon, for all the reasons you said, makes a ton of sense. I don't have a problem with Williams to the Chiefs, other than he's not an offensive lineman. I mean, I think his counterpart, Buckeye Donovan Jackson, would probably make a little more sense because they're probably going to lose a guard, but Jackson could play guard or tackle. But keep a strength to strength, put him next to Chris Jones. I'm a big Tyleik Williams fan.
And you wouldn't be shocked at all if, in the way this draft fell, if there was someone who could play legit tackle that was projected there falls. It's hard to see those players fall to 31. So maybe the Chiefs are moving up again. And instead of for Xavier Worthy and wide receiver this year, maybe they move up again. And they actually moved up in the second round to get their tackle last year. Maybe they've seen something and they'll feel better about a veteran and the guys they drafted before in KC, but they do have to address that. KC has a lot of holes.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, that's the predicament they're in. That's why they don't have tackles, because they're too good.
Exactly.
They'll be so good, you know?
All right, let us know what you think. Get involved in this week's mailbag at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Matt and I back tomorrow. Matt will be in Indianapolis for the Combine when we talk next.
Love it.
Right here, Peacock and Williamson.